Okay, so what are we going to validate? We're going to validate. So how do you validates name? Okay, presence true. So what we're saying is that it's going to validate the name attribute or name field, and it's going to enforce that presence is true. Otherwise, it's not going to save, and the .valid would return, .valid question mark method would return false. So let's try that again. Whoops. I'm not sure if I have to exit here once I change the model. Let's try this out. So recipe equals recipe.new and name empty summary empty descript. Okay, now let's see. Recipe.valid. Okay, so I have to exit, I guess. Let's try that again. Rails console. There's a reload method, and I think I have to do exclamation mark at the end. But anyway, let's try that again. Recipe equals recipe.new name summary and then description. Okay, now recipe.valid. See how it returned false? Because now this validation is getting enforced. So now if I try to do recipe.save, see begin transaction, rollback transaction, false, because it's no longer valid because the name has to be present. Okay? All right. So that takes care of our first test. The name should be present. Okay? And I hope you're getting the hang of it. So that is TDD in a summary, where it's test-driven development. You basically spec it out, you write out the test, which is a failing test, and then you build the functionality to make the test pass. So that's how you develop. Okay? So that's TDD. All right. So let's go ahead with the rest of our tests. What do we have next? Let's check out our spec. Name must be between 5 characters and less than 100 characters. Okay? So let's try that out. Increase the space here a little bit. Test. Name length should not be too long. Right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write out all of the tests first. We know that name length should not be too long. And then we know name length should not be too short. Okay, what else do we have? Oops, wrong file. Summary must be present. Summary should be present. Okay, then test. I believe the next one is summary length. Okay, summary must be between 10 characters and less than 150 characters. Okay, so summary length should not be too long. Do end. Next test. Summary length should not be too short. All right, so what do we have next? Let's check out our document. Description must be present. Then description should not be too long. And then I believe this should be the last one. Description should not be too short. All right. Okay, I think that should cover all of the tests. And chef ID must be present. We're going to cover that later. All right. So we have all these tests that we have spec'd out. But if I go to terminal and just simply write rake test, we see that it's passing. Now, why is it passing even though we wrote out all the text? Because we haven't actually written any of the tests. We've just basically defined empty methods so far. Now we have to write the conditions for the tests. Now, why are these two assertions? You'll see there are 10 tests because we've written out all the tests, but they're not asserting anything, okay? Now, the two assertions that are there, because we added the validation for the name, that test is passing, and the recipe valid test is also passing, okay? So, all right, let's go ahead and write the tests. Name length, wait, do we write the test first? Yeah, let's do that. Name length should not be too long, okay? How are we going to test this? The spec that we wrote is that the name length must be 100 characters or less. How are we going to do that? If you go to Rails console and type in A, and then multiply by 101, it basically writes out 101 A's. All right, so this length is 101. If I try something like this, B equals A times 101, B dot length 101, okay? Just to test it out. All right, so this is what we're going to use. So I'm going to say something like this. Recipe, which is our object, dot name, because that's the test we're going to do on name, equals A. I'm changing the name. The name that we have given the recipe object is this. So I'm changing it to something else. A times 101, which will give me 101 because I want the length to be less than or equal to 100. So 101 should fail. And remember, for failing, we just assert not, then recipe.valid. Okay? I hope you're starting to see a pattern here, and this is what we're going to be using for our tests for models pretty much throughout. Okay, So let's do the same thing here. Length should not be too short. Recipe.name. Now to see, let's refer to our spec. We want to say 5 characters, right? So for this, we don't really need to use this method. I will just put 4 A's, so that's 4 characters. And then assert not recipe.valid. Okay, then summary should be present. So same thing, recipe dot summary, empty string, and then assert not recipe dot valid. All right, so before we go further, let's just make these tests pass in the simplest way possible. All right, so if I go and do rake test, so I have 3 failures. What are the 3 failures? Let's try them out. Name length should not be too long. That's failing, okay, and we expected that. Length should not be too short. That's failing also. Again, they were expecting neither of these to be valid, but both of them came out valid because the validation is not enforced. And summary should be present, same thing. So let's go ahead and add these validations to our recipe model. So validates name, presence true. Similarly, to make the summary name be present, summary presence true. So that should make the summary test pass. Now we're going to enforce the length requirements here, right? So length colon open brace minimum, and I think we said 5, so 5, and then maximum 100 close brace. So let's see what it does now. Do rake test. Perfect. So 5 assertions, 0 failure, so they're all passing. All right. Let's go and fill in the rest of the tests. Okay. Summary length should not be too long. We're going to use the same method here. So recipe dot summary, and then should not be too long. So I think it was 150. So we're going to multiply this 151, and then assert not. Okay. Summary length should not be too short. So at recipe.summary, A times, I believe it was 9, but I'll check that real quick. Assert not at recipe.valid. Okay. So let's check this and make sure it's in our spec. 10 characters. Yep. So that's correct. All right. Okay. So description must be present. So let's try that. At recipe dot description, assign an empty string, and then assert not recipe.valid. Description should not be too long. So recipe.description equals A. And then I think we enforce a restriction of 500 characters for this, so 501 should fail. Assert not recipe.valid. And then the last one for now, recipe description should not be too short. I believe it's 20 that the minimum length for description, 20 characters. So we'll make it 19 so that it fails. Okay. So that should be good. Now let's go ahead and see what this does when I run the test. Okay, so we have 5 failures, which is what we were expecting. So let's go ahead and make them pass. So first, description must be present. All right. So validate summary. I think we missed some tests. Description summary length should not be too short. I'm not sure. Oh yeah, okay, no, they're there. We didn't miss them. I just got confused for a second there. All right. So first, let's complete our summary test. Summary length should not be too long. Summary length should not be too short. All right. So validate summary, presence true, then length. Then we say minimum 10, maximum 150. All right, that should take care of that. Now description. Description must be present. All right, so validates description, presence true, and then length minimum 20, maximum 500. All our tests should now be passing unless I made some error somewhere, so let's try it out. Perfect. So we have 10 assertions, which is 10 tests that we wrote here, and all of them are passing. So that concludes what we want to do for our model. And at this time, we're going to, of course, add more things to our model later. But for now, we have a working model that has validations, which are being enforced. And we have a test suite that's basically passing. So if we make an update here, which actually makes one of our tests fail, when we later on and we run rake test, that's going to catch that and it's going to fail the test. Okay? And then based on the name of the test, we'll know where it's failing, which will be very, very helpful to us later on as we develop more features and add more lines of code, basically. Okay, so following similar methodology, we're going to create the specs first, then the tests, and then add the validations to our chef's model next, the chef model, I'm sorry. And we'll take care of that in the next lesson. See you there.